I'm Ed Block, and I'm a happy pensioner living here in the Florida Keys. Today I would like to engage you in a little conversation about two really important aspects of how to manage a public relations organization in a corporation or in an institution. These are ideas that were baked into the AT&T Public Relations Department, in which I spent about 40 years. They were baked in by Arthur Page, and they are really absolutely essential to a good public relations department. The first one is that public relations in an institution or in a corporation, its major function is absolutely policy. If you get the policies right in a corporation or an institution that are satisfactory to your stakeholders, you don't have a public relations problem. And that's a lost idea in this day in which we want to talk about things like how to deal with the media and the and the community and so on and so forth. It's really all about policy. And here's an example that happened to me. We were in a lengthy court thing after the federal, after the feds set out to break up the AT&T and the Bell telephone system. And we had talked, that thing had been in court for 8 years. And we had been talking about it within the management of the business about, how long can we stand this? The longer it never comes to an ending, we get to the point that we don't know what business we're going to be in when this antitrust suit is over. And so we were talking within the senior management about what could be the outcomes. Anyway, at some point, about 8 years into this thing, Charles Brown, who was the chief executive of AT&T, had come to in his own mind where we had to end up, and in his own mind we had to just find a way to get this thing out of the court. And so it was one afternoon that he called me on the intercom. My office was about 10 steps from his, and he called the general counsel, the head lawyer, and told us both to come in his office. He wanted to talk to us. So when we got in there, he said, I've decided that I'm going to go to our board of directors and tell them that we really can't go on with this forever, and that we've got to find a way to offer a way to the federal government to find a way to satisfy them without wrecking our business entirely. So anyway, we go into Charlie Brown's office, and he tells us that he has made this decision. He's going to take this to the board of directors. And he looks at the chief lawyer and says, you've got to explain to me how this would be done. How can we go to the feds with a suggestion that we're ready to fold? And he looks at me and he said, now you've got to convince me that we can make this decision sound reasonable to our stakeholders. We had 90 million or so stockholders. We had a couple of 100,000 employees. We had the media. We had all kinds of stakeholders. So he wanted to know how, what can we tell them, because it's going to be a shock to them. Nobody had been speculating that we were going to fold up. Okay, so anyway, I went to our home on 52nd Street in New York, where I had a little home office, which was really the laundry room of our apartment. And I had a typewriter in there. A typewriter in those days, that's what we used, and set it up on the top of a washing machine, and began to write. And the one thing that occurred to me was that this was not a matter of doing a release to the media, to the newspapers. That we needed a full examination of why this is the right thing to do. So it occurred to me that instead of doing something for the media, in a way of an announcement, that I would write the story in the form of a full-page ad in newspapers, because it occurred to me that a full-page ad in newspapers meant you had to talk to all of those stakeholders, internally, externally, and it gave me a framework. So I wrote the complete story of why this was the right thing to do now. And my point here is that the chairman of the board called on the public relations department, namely me, to write this up, to explain to the publics, all of the publics, why we're doing this. And the point here is that the connection between the chief executive and the board and the public relations is absolutely key to getting public relations done right. And that's what happened. That was one of many episodes in my own 40-year or so career in public relations at AT&T and in the old Bell system. That was the thing, the idea that was baked in to the organization by Arthur Page. And the CEOs accepted it. In fact, he was hired by the CEO into the top job. And that's why everybody in the organization, in the top management of the organization, accepted that the PR department was the policy department, and we, by the way, we did a very good job of announcing that outcome of the law. As a matter of fact, a guy named Call, who was a writer or was a reporter for the I think he's now in New Yorker. But anyway, he wrote a story in the Wall Street Journal in which he said, we did such a good job announcing the outcome that it looked like we won. And but the point is that we did get the idea across to all of those people and all of those stakeholders as that it was a reasonable thing to do, and would be in the advantage of all of them. And I've probably got 100 stories like that where the PR department in effect made the policy and explained it. The other thing I want to mention is in the management of a public relations department, one of the absolutely most important things to do is what's called mentoring. And what you want to do is bring people into the organization and and teach them how public relations works, what is expected from a public relations department in a corporation. And this too came from Arthur Page. And I had the happy, it was happenstance, I guess, that the big boss in Southwestern Bell, where I had my starting to understand public relations. Our big boss, the vice president, a man by the name of Doug Williams, who had worked directly with Arthur Page. And Doug was absolutely determined that anybody that came in that department, that had the bosses in that department, had to groom that person to be the head of the department, to walk through the chairs going up. And the importance of that is pretty clear, that you want a department that is always getting better. And you also want a department that when you need a chief public relations officer, there are one or more or several to choose from.